Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ray Carr Radio Show on WCSB Cleveland. 7 minutes after, is it 7 minutes after 1 in the morning in Cleveland? Yes, it is. Alison Arngrim, welcome to the Ray Carr Show.
What are you people doing awake at this hour in Cleveland?
Alison, I don't know what we're doing. You know why we're awake? The real honest to God's truth is that we wanted to talk to you.
Yes.
And my husband, Bob, is going, they're in Cleveland. He's from Akron.
So, he's from Akron. All right, great.
Yeah.
He's Summit County.
I married an Ohioan.
Where did you two meet?
We actually met in L.A. We met in L.A. at AIDS Project Los Angeles. He was director of the Southern California AIDS Hotline, which back in the 80s was a really scary proposition. I mean, you had to take all the calls with people ready to jump off a roof. And he was really good at that. He wrote the whole training manual, set up the whole training program, and I was a volunteer there. And many, many years later, it was very when Harry met Sally. We were like friends for like 7 years, and then finally went on a date. It was crazy.
Wow. And, well, Alison, of course, the most noted role that you did was Nasty Nellie Olson on Little House on the Prairie. And that's something everybody talks about. But before I get into the Little House scenario and all the excitement that surrounds that, talk about your stand-up comedy for a minute.
I started doing stand-up when I was 15 years old, back in the 70s. In fact, there's that book called I'm Dying Up Here, the whole history of the Comedy Store. I'm actually in that, and I got interviewed for that. I was hanging out then with all the, Jay Leno and Tom Dreesen and David Letterman and everyone, and it was absolutely crazy. And I kept on at doing stand-up, and then in 2002, I decided to go totally crazy and started doing a whole one-woman show of all true stories called Confessions of a Prairie Bitch.
Can you share some of those stories with us tonight? Listen, Alison, I'd love to hear those stories.
Yeah,
Indeed, I do. Well, I talk about the craziness of being this ex-child star and having played this horrible person. I talk to the audience about the shit I've had to put up with. I had people just harassing me all of these years. And that, I don't know why everyone watches the show and says they wish they lived in the 1800s. The 1800s sucked. I mean, oh my God, no antibiotics? Did you cut yourself? I'm sorry, you'll have to die now. And the insanity of here is this wholesome show, and here it's starring Michael Landon, who can never keep his shirt on for more than like half the episode.
Yeah.
And is wearing no underwear. Skin-tight pants and no underwear on the prairie in the 1800s. You really have to get the DVDs and watch them slow-mo and pause running down a hill. But, yeah, I talk about this as the whole insanity of being an ex-child star and playing a bitch and being the most hated person in the world and having people hit me in the face with an orange soda during the Santa Claus Lane Hollywood Christmas Parade. And it's been an interesting life.
Wow. When you got the part of Nasty Nellie Olson, did you have any idea what you were in store for?
Oh, my God, no. I mean, none of us did. I mean, that's the thing. Now that it's been 40 years, we had our 40th anniversary in 2014.
Wow.
The cast and I, the rest of it, we've all kind of started to compare notes, and we shake our heads. If anyone had told us that 40 years ago that this show would still be running all these years later, that it would be in 140 countries, it would be on DVDs in every language, that people would be still watching this and talking, I said, no way in hell this thing was going to be a success. We had no idea. Charlotte Stewart, who played Miss Beadle on the show, she said when she went to the audition, she thought it was a TV movie. She didn't know it was a series. She got the part and found out she was being signed to a multi-year contract, that it was a series. She nearly fainted. She thought it was a one-off. And nobody believed it. We all said, well, this is a nice idea, but you know how TV is nowadays. In the 70s, no one wants these family value shows. They'll never watch. And of course, it was the biggest hit ever in the history of Earth.
Yeah, my God.
Blew all our minds. So we still can't believe it.
You spent 9 years on that show, correct?
I was 7 years plus one episode.
Okay, so 7 years plus one episode.
For 9. Everyone's contracts were for 7 years, and that's why you noticed there was a huge cast change in like year 8. It's like everyone left, and they got all those little kids. It was sort of like the Muppet Babies version of Little House. They had a new girl who was like the small Laura, and they had Nancy who was like the little Nellie. But I came back weirdly. In season 9, they did the return of Nellie, so I came back for a visit and got to face off with my evil adopted sister Nancy, which was quite cool.
And what was the biggest thing Michael, or some of the big things Michael Landon taught you about how to handle your character and how to conduct yourself?
Well, indeed, Michael had this great, his attitude was very, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And he really let the actors run riot. That's one of the things that everyone who was ever on a Landon show, people did Highway to Heaven, people did Little House Loved. If you came in with an idea and said, I think I'm going to do this, he'd say, okay, let's try it. And if it worked, he left you alone. He'd direct people if they needed, but he often would just say, well, just do that then, and just sort of let you run amok. And early on, whatever the heck I was doing as Nellie, he decided he liked it. And I started to worry because he didn't seem to be directing me very often. He'd sit, with the young girls who had the crying scenes and, direct them. I thought, God, he's hardly directing me. Am I doing something wrong? And then one day he was directing me and said, okay, and then he comes in the door and does this, and you come in and you're like that. And Alison, you come in and, you do that thing you do, that thing. And I was like, oh, it's like by the numbers. Okay. But he did. I think he lived vicariously through Nellie. He wrote a lot of the really outrageous Nellie episodes where I did some of the worst stuff. Going down the hill in the wheelchair. And he wrote the whole episode, the whole idea of Nellie marrying Percival. All that was him. So I think he was sort of getting his jollies, trying to see how awful he could make Nellie Olson and how far I'd be willing to go.
Did you ever have any problem with some of the stuff that he wrote and say, oh, I don't know, I don't think I want to do this?
One episode that still makes me wince. I mean, I did it. I always went full out. I would read the scripts and go, my God, what have they got me doing now? Okay. And then I would just commit totally and go berserk. But the one episode I still completely wince is, it's called The Music Box, and it's the one where Nellie has a club, and there's the poor little stuttering girl, Lauren's friend, Anna, and she stutters, played by the wonderful Katie Kurtzman. And I won't let her in the club because she stutters. And then I say, well, okay, she can be in the club, but she has to say the password. And, of course, I insist that the password is Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper.
Oh, good Lord, you didn't do that.
And she's standing there sobbing. And Katie's a really good actress, so she's laying it on me. She doesn't stutter in real life. And we're still friends today, actually. And she's standing there, though, tears streaming down her face, Peter Piper, and sobbing, shaking, and I'm going, I can't hear you, say it faster. And it was just so evil. And I was just torturing this poor little girl. And it really got me, because when I was really little, I talked like Cindy Brady. I had that list. I talked like this. I would have said Nellie Olson. And my name is Alison. And I had to go to speech class after school with a girl who, I swear to God, I thought her name was Wanda for a month until I found out it was it turned out it was Woda. She couldn't say her R's. I couldn't say my S's. We made a lovely team. But I had to go to speech class with the kids who stuttered and who stammered and couldn't say R and couldn't say L and couldn't say S. So I have enormous empathy and sympathy for anyone with a speech impediment. Like, the last thing in the world I'm going to do is pick on a stutterer, because I was a kid who talked funny and went to speech class. So it's like, yeah, I'm really going to do that. And here I am tormenting a stuttering girl, and Katie, who is so good at it, is just sobbing and screaming and crying and going, I'm going, yeah, I can't hear you. You can't talk. And I thought, I'm going to go to hell. I'm going to burn in hell right now for doing this. So yeah, I was almost sick to my stomach doing that one, and I still watch and go, okay, I hate me. I hate me watching that one.
Wow. But your character, all these years later, a lot of people I know talk about, God, nasty Nellie Olson, she made the show.
Yes.
You really made the show.
I have to look back with absolute pride. I'm very proud of the whole thing, because look how it worked out. The show, everyone was so nice, and the characters are so nice, and Laura, but the whole point of Laura is that she triumphs over adversity. So she had to have this person driving her crazy to give her something to fight. And I think they really went with it. I mean, if you read On the Banks of Plum Creek, which is one of the Laura Ingalls Wilder books that the show was really based on with the town, it's okay. Nellie's fairly annoying, but Mrs. Olson isn't that big a part, and Nellie's only like 2-3 chapters. But even when Laura wrote that book, she got fan mail. I mean, the character of Nellie, the real Nellie, she didn't really see her after they left Minnesota, but she wrote her into other books, showing up suddenly, coincidentally, for no reason in South Dakota, because people were demanding more Nellie stories. So the character had something about it that struck a nerve, even in the books. But it was still fairly tame. But with Michael's influence, and then the influence of the actors, because we had such amazing people on the show, I think all the characters really just exploded and went way past where they were in the books and really became something else. And I know I took Nellie and ran with it, and Michael let me and encouraged me, and then it was sort of like, I dare you. They would give me a script, I would go all out, then it was like, well, let's see how far she'll go next week. Let's write this. Will she do that? Oh, she did that. Let's see what else she'll do. And it was sort of, can you top this? So that by the end of the show, I was truly terrifying. And I really enjoyed it. And I look back now, and it does hold up. I mean, I was just sitting here tonight actually doing my fan mail. I have fan mail today from Ecuador and Japan.
Oh, wow.
And so I was signing autographed pictures for people in Ecuador and Japan and Germany and France.
And the show still plays over there, obviously.
Yeah, constantly. It's crazy. We just started in China and I think South Africa.
Wow.
But we've been pretty much all over the world for years. Huge in France, huge in Spain. Oh, my God, the Argentinians are out of their minds for the Prairie.
It would not, that particular show, Little House on the Prairie, would not seem like it would play well in Argentina, but it does.
If you go on Facebook, there are so many pages by Argentinians with, like, I love Michael Landon and just, like, tribute Facebook pages to Little House in Argentina. It's huge. And, of course, the French. I spent half the year in France because the first time I went, I found out that the French people were just obsessed with La Petite Maison de la Prairie. It shows every day at lunchtime. French people, traditionally, they take a long lunch, they go home, they turn on Little House on the Prairie. And I found out the whole country was obsessed with it. So now I go there. In fact, I'm heading out next week because I go out there and I have a whole show. I have a thing, Nellie Olson's Trunk of Treasures, or Le Mal au Trésor de Nellie Olson, and I do a whole show in French. And I do personal appearances in France, and I speak French, and it's crazy.
Wow.
What part of France do you go to?
All of them. Going to Paris, and then I go all out. I'm going out to a place near Toulouse next week, but I'm going to be all over the country again in May and June because I go out to these small villages. I'm very popular out in the Alsace region, out in the east. I'm really big in the north, but I've been out to almost every region in France, the Vosges, way down south, and Provence, and pretty much all over, and sometimes into really small towns where I don't know that very many Americans have ever even gone. Certainly no celebrities have gone in and done shows there. It's just unheard of.
Amazing. Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about the cast members other than Michael Lennon that you work with and maybe some of the experiences behind the scenes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was an incredible cast. I mean, it's just these people they assembled. And, of course, with Melissa Gilbert, when she got the role of Laura, one of the stories she told me, she knew she got in the job was tiny little thing, and they'd gone through the whole audition process, and Michael had talked to her and asked her all these questions, and then as she was leaving, he said, by the way, how tall are you? And he just wanted to throw out a random question to see an uncoached answer. What would she? And she said, I'm this tall, and just held her hand up over her head. And he died of laughter and went, okay, that's so cute. That's like a Laura. I think that is absolutely something Laura Ingalls would do. And that was like it. It's like, I want her. And they did a screen test and everything, but he would decide. He would tell him, no, I want this one. I did other screen tests, but you can't have them because I just only want this actor. He knew he wanted her. She was perfect for it. And it was the same with all the characters. I mean, people we didn't even all go to network. I wasn't even approved by network. Michael would just say, I picked someone, leave me alone. It was such an incredible assemblage of actors. I mean, the Olsen's dining table, when you'd have Nels and Harriet and me and Willie, you had 4 radically different schools of acting. You had Richard Bull, who was a graduate of the Goodman School in Chicago, and then you had Catherine McGregor, who'd studied with Meisner and was very, very big and method and all over the place. And then you had little Jonathan. Jonathan Gilbert was Melissa Gilbert's brother. It's Melissa Gilbert's actual brother, who played my brother. And he was this kid. He came along to the audition with her, and they said, you want to be Willie? Oh, okay. And so he wasn't interested in doing it all. He was just being himself. He just was Willie. So he was just doing whatever the hell he felt like in the moment. And then you had me being the most evil child in the world. And the 4 of us at this dining table, all as actors, doing insanely different things as far as technique went, and it all worked. It was perfect. It was like magic. And the chemistry between me and Melissa Gilbert, we're still friends, and here we were playing mortal enemies. And then when I got married on the show, and they brought in Steve Tracy, who played my husband Percival, that was hilarious. We had immediate chemistry. It was like fireworks. I mean, there were people who thought we were actually having an affair. It was like so perfect. I mean, you just don't get, I mean, it was the kind of actor chemistry and magic you saw on, like, the Carol Burnett show or the Bob Newhart show. Just unbelievable. It
cannot be manufactured. It's natural.
Yep.
It's just one of those things that you just pray that it happens, and when it does, you run with it as far as you can.
And I think that's what Michael saw, was as he cast people and he saw what started happening in early episodes, it was like, oh, wow, okay, put these two in a room together and stand back. And that's what he did. That's why the show's still a hit.
So after the show ended, what kind of twists and turns did your career take after that?
Well, it was really nuts because, totally typecast. Not only were casting directors absolutely convinced that I was actually some evil, diabolical bitch and terrified of me, but they apparently also all thought I lived in the 1800s. And it sounds ridiculous, but I swear to God, my agent would submit me for stuff, marvelous old age, a Lou Sherrill, really of like the old school with the pinky rings and the whole bit. He would be submitting for things, and they called and they said, oh, no, this series takes place in present day. And
really?
Pioneer Barbie? She comes with the clothes? What is wrong with you people? And the first thing I got right out the door, as soon as I left, and like even before I went back for my guest one, he said, oh, I got a movie of the week. You're like the second, the best friend of the lead. It's a huge movie of the week starring Marie Osmond. You play your best friend. It's a huge role. It's really funny, too. Bruce Boxleitner was in it before he married Melissa. And it's I Married Wyatt Earp starring Marie Osmond. But, again, it's a Western. Full thing, petticoats, the thing, the hair, the hat, the bustle, the whole bit.
Wow.
It was fabulous. Big NBC movie of the week, and I'm like, and I'm in Prairie Drag again. Okay, and it's 1876. Boom. And that's reality. And luckily, thank God for Love Boat and Fantasy Island, where you get to run around in a swimsuit and play a hooker.
Yeah, talk about that for a little bit.
Okay, so I was a hooker on Fantasy Island.
Yeah, I remember.
Everyone must be a hooker on Fantasy Island at least once. Also, at that time period, as I always say, Fantasy Island and Love Boat, it was like a court-ordered program. It's the law. If you're on a series, you must be on these two shows. And you had to do the roller boogie episode of Chips. Was also
yeah. My God.
I fell on Todd Bridges. But I did Love Boat and Fantasy Island, and I was a bitch on Love Boat. It was great. I played a bitchy girl who had her own show, and Nancy Culp, Miss Hathaway.
Oh, yeah, Nancy Culp.
Played my aunt. Brilliant. And so Fantasy Island was Eve Plum, Jan Brady, comes to Fantasy Island. She plays my mother. We're the same age. Eve Plum, Jan Brady, comes to Fantasy Island. She's pregnant, but with a mysterious television disease that they don't name, and she's not going to live to see the child grow up. So Ricardo Montalban takes her into the future, and they do this whole Back to the Future. That she gets to see her daughter grow up. But something goes horribly wrong, and her daughter runs away from home and becomes a hooker. So she does this whole quantum leap thing and jumps into the future and sneaks into the brothel. Chaos ensues. She gets dressed up as a hooker. I get auctioned off to some guy named Lucky Eddie for $5,000. She calls the police. I'm rescued. Everyone lives happily ever after.
Thank God for that, Alison. Did you ever think that would ever happen?
No, I was very worried, especially because they put me in a swimsuit that was literally 2 sizes too small. And I mean, I was 19 years old and rail thin, and this thing was still 2 sizes too small. If I was a 4, this thing was a 2. I mean, it was ridiculous. I had to pull it up to cover my boobs, and if it covered my boobs, then my crotch was exposed. I had to pull it down, cover my crotch. My boobs were out. It was a nightmare. And then I had to stand there and be auctioned off, and then Hervé Villachez was...
Oh, he's unbelievable.
A walking sexual harassment lawsuit.
I know. I heard stories about that guy.
A terror.
I mean, he probably didn't leave you alone.
Well, that was the thing with Hervé. He dealt in volume.
That's the way it was back then.
He dated several very hot models because Hervé Villechaize figured out, he was absolutely right. He just figured out if he asked every single person he saw to have sex with him, someone would have to say yes eventually. And this was his method, and it definitely paid off. He dealt in volume, but it meant if you're standing there in a size 2 sizes too small bathing suit and spike heels, Hervé's going to be following you around. Hey, baby, you come to my desk.
Oh, my.
And he was like ass high. I mean, you couldn't get away from it. It was very embarrassing. And Hervé up my butt.
Oh, Alison, that's precious. Oh, my God.
Hervé Villechaize. I have nightmares.
How was Ricardo? Ricardo Montalban about all this?
He was lovely. Ricardo Montalban was totally like he was. It was absolute perfect gentleman. He was like, welcome to Fantasy Island. Yes, he made up for it totally.
Did he ever say anything about Corinthian leather?
Corinthian leather. We used to try to get him to say it. Everyone was calling, could you say Corinthian leather, please? Just once.
Just one time. Oh, my goodness. Oh, did you ever want to go back on Fantasy Island? Did you ever think years later, but when it was still on the air, go, hey, I'd like to go back and do one more episode?
God, no. It really well, it was kind of nightmarish too because it was right after the actors' strike, and everything was really crazy, and they were trying to do makeup, so they were shooting like 2 episodes at a time and working this insane schedule. I actually spent 17 hours straight in that bathing suit and high heels. I got great overtime. It was lovely, but it was nightmarish. Love Boat was much more relaxed, and everybody in Love Boat was really, 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 really nice. And I was in an episode with Toni Tennille from The Captain Tennille.
Oh, yeah, I know Toni. Yeah.
And she was playing her ukulele in the dressing room and telling us stories about the captain, and it was hysterical. I really liked that. That was fun. And, of course, Miss Hathaway from Beverly Hillbillies, Nancy Culp.
I was always a fan of Nancy. What was she like off the air?
Marvelous. She was very intimidating. When I first met her, I was actually a little intimidated because, I'm sorry, I just ate a mini pizza in the middle of the night here. Nancy Culp came on very, very tall, very grand, very imposing, and that sort of Miss House, yes, ooh. And when I first met her, I was a little intimidated. I thought, ooh, does she maybe not like me? And she could give you like the look of death and totally slay you with like 2 words. And I remember we were in the makeup area, and I was telling stories, and I had these girls laughing hysterically, and just then Nancy Culp walked in, looked at me, looked at them, and said, oh, it's the entertainer, and walked out. And I was like, oh, meow, okay, ouch, yikes. I'm scared. And then after a couple of days, she decided she liked me. And then we started talking, and we wound up getting along like a house of fire. And she just totally adored me. And I was telling my actual aunt who was hanging around the set, I said, I want to grow up to be Nancy Culp. So, yeah, she's a doll. She was just a doll. I loved her. I wanted to adopt her. But when you first met her, she had this very imposing, sort of imperious look about her that a lot of people sort of backed up about 10 feet.
Yeah, she had you felt like she was kind of an elitist.
Oh yeah, she was very grand. It was. You know what it was? It was Downton Abbey. She was the dowager from Downton Abbey.
Got it.
She did not screw with Nancy Culp. She would rip you a new one. But if she liked you, oh yeah, she was the sweetest person ever.
Very interesting. You've had quite a career.
I have.
You really have, and it's only just begun.
I know. I'm doing all sorts of crazy things. I just did a teeny, tiny little horror film where I played a nun.
Oh, okay. Tell me about it.
Oh, it's called Safe. Lord knows when this thing's coming out, because you know how these things are. But it's interesting. It's one of those is the killer in the house, oh crap, thriller, terrifying things with this couple. But at one point, the guy goes to talk to a nun, of all people, and I am this mother superior who runs an orphanage and is kind of severe but loving. And I'm actually dead serious. I'm a nun. And then there's 2 other projects I'm very excited about, both horror coming up, one of which involves being attacked by a 30-foot angry mutant penguin.
Oh, you really?
And I got the script for that, and I started reading it, and I thought, okay, this is a horror movie. And then it got weirder and weirder until I went, penguin! Penguin, wait. And then I had to flip back, and I went, oh, okay, hi. Yeah, no, it's a total send-up of, like, every horror movie ever made. There's gags from Jaws and everything else. It's like Airplane, but with horror films. And it involves a giant 30-foot monster penguin. And I laughed so hard reading the script, I hurt myself. And so I called them and said, please, I beg you, may I be in your giant 30-foot insane penguin movie?
That is incredible. I mean, that's a movie I'd like to be in.
Right. I read it. That's the thing is I tell these people, all these new young filmmakers, if I read your script and I laugh my ass off and I find something and I go, I want to, if it's union and there's a part in there and I go, this is a good part and I want to do this, I'm going to call you back. So every now and then people send me these scripts and I go, this is great. Where the hell have you been? Yes, I want to be in this. I did a TV pilot called Life Interrupted where I played Mason Reese's ex-wife. If you remember Mason Reese from the Underwood Deviled Ham commercial.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's a bonus month, and he's now grown up, but looks remarkably the same. He's like still like, hello, Mason Reese. And I played his ex-wife, and I've left him for another woman, and so I married to Erin Murphy, who is Tabitha on Bewitched.
Yes, Erin, I know Erin.
She's marvelous. She played my wife. We call each other wifey now. We're like, wifey, how's my wifey? So I played, so Nellie and Tabitha, the French went mad for this story. Tabitha and Nellie in lesbian affair and mariage gay.
Right.
So I married to Tabitha, and then Dawn Wells, Mary Ann, played my mother. It was awesome.
Dawn Wells was recently on our show, too.
Isn't she marvelous? She's doing a whole new thing. She's got a whole web series where she's stuck on the island. It's marvelous.
Yeah, I liked her, and she was fantastic. And Erin Murphy's going to come on shortly. I don't know when exactly.
Oh, excellent. Well, do say hello to my wife.
I definitely will do that.
She's very beautiful. I'm married to a very beautiful woman, and she can wiggle her nose.
That's important. That's very important. Alison Arngrim, our special guest here on the Ray Carr Show. We're on WCSB Cleveland. Alison, I'm going to open up the phone lines. Is that okay with you?
Great. God, who the hell's up at this hour in Cleveland? Yeah,
oh, there's a lot. You'd be surprised.
Oh
you'd be surprised. Our telephone number, if you'd like to talk to Alison Arngrim, 216-687-3515. We'll take some phone calls, and we'll see if you have any questions. Alison, is there anybody out there in Hollywood that you really, really would love to work with that you haven't had the chance to be around?
Absolutely. Well, David Bowie died, unfortunately. I would love to work with him. Yes, there's all sorts of people. First of all, I've always been just like mad obsessed with Sylvester Stallone, and now that he's going back to his roots and doing really good movies like Creed that are a throwback to Rocky, I'm very excited about that. The kid who played the evil King Joffrey on Game of Thrones, but he said he won't act anymore after playing that part. I loved him. I felt like he was Nellie Olson's spiritual son, but he apparently had people treating him so badly for being the villain that he just kind of like bailed on the whole thing.
Game of Thrones is a tough series to watch.
Yeah, it's so gruesome. It's so gruesome. I liked him. I love all the actors on it, but it's a little rough.
Yeah, there was some animals being mutilated in there I didn't like too much.
And all the shows now, everything's zombies. Everything's the undead. Everything either has a coroner or a zombie. The bodies are either on the table or they're walking around. But, like, you can't make a show now without at least one rotting corpse.
Well, that's very true.
Remember when they had Quincy with Jack Klugman? It was a whole show about a coroner. You never saw the bodies. Never.
No, good point. You're absolutely right. You never did see the body.
Years. And every episode, he was dissecting dead people. He was a freaking coroner. You saw a foot. You saw a foot sticking out from under a sheet. He was under the sheet and went, I found the bullet here. Now the whole body's splayed out with the blood all over the room.
That's true.
What does that say about us as people?
And you're like going, oh, look, they found a kidney. It's lovely. This is on my television. And I watch all these shows. I mean, I like all the shows. I like NCIS. I like all the shows. I like all the crime shows. And I even like some of the zombie shows. But I do find myself going, is this too much? Are there supposed to be this many rotting corpses on my television screen, back to back? Really?
Yeah, I kind of wonder that myself, and I'm not that old, but, I'm thinking, my God, I mean, I'm just getting to the point where I kind of wish things were kind of in reverse, going back to the way they used to be.
That's why so many people say we need another Little House on the Prairie, because just a few less dead bodies here and there would be nice. And I said to my husband, and I was like, we were watching a show and go, oh, it was a great show, we were watching it, and we're kind of going, you see the bodies? We never saw the bodies on Quincy. He's like, oh, my God, you're right. We never saw the bodies. Why are the bodies all over the TV now?
Yeah, it's just, as Bob Dylan said, these times they are a-changing.
Right? Everything is bigger, faster, more. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes not so much.
That's right. And we have a call.
We have a call.
You're on the radio. Hello, caller. Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to ask a question.
Please go right ahead.
Please, yes.
Hey, okay, sounds good. I'm a canvasser, and I do a lot of political organizing. And I was just curious, how do you see things turning out in the 2016 election?
Oh, I have to say it's very exciting. I was just talking about how, everyone's talking about the debates. They didn't used to have debates for the primaries. They didn't even used to have presidential debates, and when they didn't even have them every year, and it was just the two candidates they'd narrowed it down to. This idea of where we start covering the elections a year in advance and have debates for the people who may be kind of sort of in the primaries. This is totally a new thing. It's really gone bananas. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, normally I would say, well, Hillary's going to have the nomination, but we thought that before, and then Barack Obama came from behind, and Bernie Sanders happening here. So I don't know. And everyone is speculating, but it's like no one's actually voted yet. So it's like, well, let's see what Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina do. It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. Trump obviously is making a lot of noise, but is it for real? Is this going to pan out? Is he actually going to be the candidate, or is he going to get bored? We don't know. Right. He's going to go back to his television show and say, wow, well, I'll have great ratings now. Well, who knows where the hell this is going? I can say I am excited for people in Michigan, although you're in Ohio, because Melissa Gilbert, of all people, is running for Congress for the 8th District of Michigan.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
She is. She's running for Congress. She's running for the 8th District in Michigan.
Wow.
So
that's fantastic.
If you're in the 8th District of Michigan, you can actually vote for Melissa Gilbert for Congress.
Our telephone number, 216-687-3515. Actually only hung up on a caller earlier, so we apologize. Call right back. Here we go, I think.
And he was a good caller. We didn't hang up.
No, he was a very good caller. We have another call. You're on the air, sir.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning.
I had a question for you, Alison.
Sure.
Hey, instead of asking you your favorite television show from maybe the 60s or whatever, what show would have you liked to have been in from the 60s, and what part?
Oh, gosh.
That's a good question.
I would have liked to have been on The Man from U.N.C.L.E. when I was little, because I loved Elia Kuryakin. Of course, now
David McCallum, right?
I love him, David McCallum, and now he's Ducky, so I get to watch him again. I love that show. I loved the Monkees and that kind of thing. Laugh-In. I was a huge Goldie Hawn on Laugh-In was a huge role model.
You sound like you would have been perfect for Laugh-In. You
right? I totally love that show. I totally saw myself as like, in fact, my ambitions as a child were totally molded by what I saw on TV in the 60s. When I was a very, very, very little girl, I wanted to either be president of the United States, a go-go dancer, or an astronaut.
Well, you also sound like you could have been Patty Duke,
Right. Oh, I love Patty Duke. And then in the 70s, when I was on Little House, everybody wanted to be on the shows like Rhoda and Phyllis and Mary Tyler Moore. Of course, my friends at the time said, why can't you be on a cool show like Joni Loves Chachi? Which is weird, because I didn't like Joni Loves Chachi. I did not like that's a better show than Little House. But I often felt bad that I was on Little House because people thought, oh, that's the nice family show, and the cool shows were the Rhoda and the Phyllises. And I loved Cloris Leachman on Phyllis.
Right, but you being on Fantasy Island, that's quite a resume. And I was going to say right now, a little trivia. You know what Hervey Velichez's favorite candy was?
Uh-oh, no.
Oh, boy, what is that?
They were M&M's because he kept saying, deep lane, deep lane.
Oh, wow. Oh. See, Alison, we have the best callers. We have the best.
And the amazing thing is, do you know that I actually wound up meeting
thank you very much. This is great.
In France?
Thank you.
This is great.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Greg. I actually met Hervé Villechez's brother in France.
Oh, no,
We did. We had a little house reunion in Toulon in the south of France, and the convention center where they had it. I was on my way there. The woman organizer was taking me. I said, "Well, we're going to go. We're going to have you meet the guy who runs it. We'll get a good deal on the room. They'll meet Nellie Olson. They'll know this is real. That we're really doing this. That the rest of you are coming. Oh, by the way, he's Hervé Villechaise's brother." I was like, "What?" Oh, Hervé Villechaize. He was French. He was from France. They said, "No, he's kind of the hometown boy makes good. His brother, his family lives here." I'm like, "His brother runs the convention center." Yes, Hervé Villechaise's brother. She said, "Oh, you were friends with Hervé?" No, and I'm like, "No, maybe we shouldn't bring up Hervé." But his brother was quite charming and the complete gentleman, lovely man.
Did he look like Hervé?
A little bit taller.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, he was taller, but you could tell. I mean, that was the thing when you talked to him. Guy reminds me strangely of Hervé Villechaize, but a much more better mannered Hervé Villechaize.
Well, I think maybe success could have gone to his head, if you know what I mean.
I think so. I think a little bit. Yeah, just maybe.
Just a little bit, yes.
All them lava girls on Fantasy Island.
Oh my God, it was like shooting fish in a barrel for him.
Right?
God Almighty.
And it's not like people were turning him down.
Well, yeah, but somebody said yes.
Yeah, they did. People said, well, and that's the thing, we just lost Dan Haggerty, the wonderful Grizzly Adams.
Oh, yeah.
And I posted on Twitter, I should have said yes, because Dan Haggerty totally hit on me at Brenda Vaccaro's Christmas party in the 80s.
Tell me about that.
My God.
Brenda Vaccaro?
I was at Brenda Vaccaro's Christmas party, and
Okay.
I got cornered by the punch bowl by Dan Haggerty. Grizzly Adams.
Dan Haggerty, of all
It was like
people.
the whole 80s flashback nightmare right there. But yeah, indeed, he was like totally, hey, let's leave this party. And I was like, I came here with some... But, now I look back, and it's like the guy I was going with, I broke up with him a couple months later. He was a complete loser. I could have had Dan Haggerty.
Let me ask you, what kind of line do you use on you?
He was very direct, and I met another woman who said, "Oh my God, he totally hit on me too at a party." And we both said exactly the same thing. He would just start chatting, very normal, having a nice conversation, that twinkle in his eye, little dimples in his smile, and then he'd just go, "Okay, so what do you say we just leave here right now?"
Oh, yeah, okay.
Said, Let's go right now.
Yeah.
We just go right now. Boom.
Sure. Just move right into the old hibbity-dibbity. I get it. All right.
Yeah, and apparently somebody went, "Okay, let's get the car."
Wow.
And
okay.
I should have gone. In retrospect, I should have gone. No, I was over 21. It was okay. And the guy I was going with was a complete loser. And it was like, oh, I'm here with people. Oh, they wouldn't have cared. If I'm leaving with Dan Haggerty. They go, okay, well, call us.
Dan Haggerty, boy, that would have been another chapter in the book.
Yeah,
Right? I could have totally slept with Dan Haggerty. And youth is wasted on the young. I said no.
Were there any other near misses like that?
Well, see, with me, they're all near misses. I could write a whole book, famous people who I refuse to sleep with. It was all constantly like going, no, really, I gotta go. Denny Terrio of Dance Fever, and I was like, I gotta get up in the morning. Bye, I gotta go.
Denny Terrio?
Seriously, Denny, it was the Christmas episode.
Oh,
Maybe
my
because I was
Lord.
wearing a little Santa outfit where you could see up my skirt. I don't know what happened. But Denny Terrio totally asked me out. And like a
boy.
schmuck, I said no. I know.
Well, I'm just curious. What was going through your mind at that time? Why did you say no?
Well, because I just kept thinking, it's Denny Terrio, and, you live in Hollywood and you hear all these bizarre rumors, and I was like, isn't he dating Merv Griffin? Oh, God, I'm not supposed to say. But, that's the sort of thing that was going around at that time. So I was like, oh, my God, I can't go out with Denny Terrio. But again, like I said, I was always dating, like, these loser people who weren't even famous or on dance shows or anything, and I kept turning down famous people. Now, see, you have to have Charlotte Stewart on, the one who played Miss Beadle.
Okay, Charlotte Stewart. Okay, I'm writing this down.
Not only was she Miss Beadle, but almost at the same time she was being Miss Beadle, she was doing David Lynch's first movie, Eraserhead.
Oh.
She's Mary X, who gives birth to the monster baby in Eraserhead. And she had a clothing store in the 60s called Liquid Butterfly and made clothes for bands. She slept with everybody.
She what?
She slept with everybody.
Oh, my.
All the people I turned down, I swear to God, she said yes. Charlotte Stewart, Miss Beadle, cut a swath through Hollywood. She made a Hervé Villechaize look like amateur hour.
Oh, my
That's
Lord.
okay. She was sleeping, though. That's fine.
Wow.
And she has a book coming out.
Is the book going to be revealing?
Oh, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. No, I just read it, George. It's in the proofreading stages. It's coming out in June. And it's absolutely marvelous. I'm doing a commercial for her book. I'm like, yeah, I have a book, but I'm doing a commercial for Charlotte Stewart's book. It really is because I just read it. But we've all been laughing, going, did you turn anyone down at any point? Did you take a night off?
Yeah, did you take a night off? Funny.
Apparently she turned down Don Knotts. He was very upset.
Don Knotts? I mean,
She
come
didn't
on, every
sleep with
woman
Don
wants
Knotts.
to
I
sleep
can
with
attest
Don
to that.
Knotts,
She did
right?
not actually sleep with Don
God.
Knotts. Other than that...
He's the love god.
And how old is she now?
Oh, gosh.
Mr. Furley?
70-something? I mean, I'm 54.
Okay. You and I are basically the same
do
age.
the math. I mean.
Yeah. That's one subject I didn't do very well at, but I like figures, if you know what I mean.
Well, you'd like her. So she's a fabulous woman. She's gorgeous. She's just actually, she's a newlywed. She and her boyfriend just got married, and they're a delightful couple, and she's a lovely woman. But, man, that girl got around, I'm telling you.
And she lived it.
Say one thing about Don Knotts. He had a bullet in his pocket.
Yeah, Don Knotts had a
That's right, just in case.
Well, that's what my dad always says, just in case. So, Alison, tell me more about the book. Now, the book's been out for a little while now, right?
Oh, yes, I know. I'm behind. I'm supposed to have the second one out by now. I'm terrible. But I am working on a second one because it's just the whole thing of ex-child stars seems to fascinate people, and I find it amazing, too. And people ask, why am I somewhat less crazy than I should be?
I think I know the answer to that question.
You do?
I don't think you take yourself seriously, and you know you're very good at what you do, and you enjoy life.
Oh, I like you. But you're right. It's true. You can't take yourself seriously all the time. You'll drive yourself mad,
right.
Especially in Hollywood. If you take everything too seriously, you'll implode in a week. You just can't. And I do. At some point I went, okay, this is what I'm good at. There's people good at this, there's people good at that, but I'm good at this thing over here. So, yeah. But, yeah, I don't take things too seriously. Just there's only so much you can stand. And I have always had a warped sense of humor, and it served me well. But, yeah, in the book I do cover everything. I talk about my whole wacky life even before Little House. When my family, we first moved to California, we lived in the Chateau Marmont, which was just as crazy then as it is now. And we lived at the Chateau, we lived in the Hollywood Hills, we lived near Sly and the Family Stone, we lived down the street. The American Sexual Freedom League rented the house across the street. They threw interesting parties.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, my God. Is there anything you could share with that?
Oh, yeah. Well, they had this fence by the pool, but it, was up off the ground about 6 inches, and then was only about shoulder high, and there was a gap in the fence. So we'd see these people going by, and you could tell that there was all these bare shoulders and bare feet, okay, everyone is naked at this party, this pool party. And there was a butler with a bow tie and a tray, and then he walks by the gap, and the butler was completely naked, the guy passing hors d'oeuvres, with a bow tie. He had a bow tie and little cuffs and a tray, and nothing else.
Wow.
And they were having these kind of parties in the Hollywood Hills. It was like Playboy Mansion, the mini version. So it was all the bizarre 1960s insanity. And my father, when he came out, my parents had run a theater in Canada. They'd been actors. And then my father went into management, and he worked for Seymour, Heller and Associates, who managed Liberace. So my father worked for Liberace for years.
Liberace?
And that's why we moved into Hollywood Hills, because we actually moved near Liberace, so my father could be on call in case Liberace needed anything. I don't know, lost a sequin or something.
Yeah.
But
didn't Liberace have a brother named
George?
George?
Go to the shows. It was madness.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a brother.
Yeah, I think Liberace had a brother named George, right?
He did. He really did. Oh, that I wish my brother George was
My
there, but
brother
he really
George.
did have a brother George. And his mother his mother adored him. She had boxes of his albums under the bed, and people would come see her. She propped to the bed. Would you like to buy some of my son's records? But Liberace, they would take me to see Liberace shows as a child. I was 8 years old. And they said, now you must be on your best behavior. Don't say anything, because no one must know that Liberace is gay. And I said, I'm 8. I know he's gay. And I said, he just flew over the stage. He's wearing rhinestone hot pants. People may possibly have caught on. But it was kind of like that whole, what's-his-face, Clay, was it Clay Aiken? Yes, the Claymates.
Oh,
where,
yeah, the
like,
Claymates,
fans,
yeah.
Yeah, the women, they know he's gay, but they don't care. And, I mean, this was the 60s when people didn't say it. They wouldn't say he was gay. They would say, oh, you'd be safe with him. Oh, he's that way.
Yeah.
But they were all madly in love with him. And if you said, like, is Liberace going to come off that stage and marry you? They'd be like, yeah, right. They knew on some insane level, and they just didn't care. They loved him anyway. They were obsessed with him. It was the most bizarre phenomenon ever. Do you know he was, at one point, the highest-paid entertainer in the world?
I did read that somewhere once.
Yes, he was like the gay Elvis.
Right.
Yeah, he was incredibly popular, and he was very good at what he did, and, yeah. Back in the 60s,
absolutely brilliant. No, he could play, he could sing, he created these shows. He was truly brilliant. I mean, if people see him now and they go, what is the deal and the thing and the rhinestones and this bizarre man with the hair and the capes and the stuff, and people like went to see the show and nobody thought this was weird. But no, he was Liberace. He could pull it off.
You're absolutely right. You've had quite a life, Alison. You're so young yet, and you have so many things ahead of you. What is on the agenda next for you?
Well, let's see. I'm heading out to France next week, doing my show in Toulouse. And then on Valentine's Day, I will be back because I'm doing Nasty Nellie's tour of Hollywood. I do these tours occasionally where you get in a van with me, a small van, but it's about 12 people, and we go around Hollywood. There's a Chateau Marmont and other various Hollywood landmarks. So you get the Hollywood tour, but it's all places where I've lived, or Hollywood High, where I went to school. And so you get all these crazy stories and Hervé Villechaize tales and this sort of thing. And I tell you about all the Hollywood landmarks and then my personal stories about how I lived there, or I know someone who lived there, or I slept with somebody there, or something. And then we stop for milkshakes. And we go by Michael Landon's house, and it's a riot. It's 3 hours of this, and people really enjoy it. We tell stories, and I answer questions, and we have a lovely time riding around all afternoon in a van.
That sounds like a great time. What?
It's a blast. It's Nasty Nellie's tour of Hollywood. It's you get all sorts of Hollywood history, but it's funny and silly at the same time. And then on the 19th, we have a Little House on the Prairie. On the 19th of March, a Little House cast get together. We do like to have our little events now and again to meet the fans, and there's one coming up. It's the Little House on the Prairie tribute dinner. And it's a group called the Night of Dreams. This marvelous woman is producing this thing. And it's in Anaheim. There's a place called the Anaheim White House restaurant. It's really fabulous. So it's a very high-end. It's like a really fancy dinner. You get a dinner and cocktails, and then you get a photo op with the cast, and then you actually get to sit down to dinner with your favorite cast members. And Almanzo's going to be there, Baby Carrie, Evil Nancy, my hideous sister. You get a whole crew.
Alison,
and Charlotte Stewart. So,
it sounds like a great time. It really does.
You get stories about who she slept with. It's lovely.
I'd love to hear that.
Have an hors d'oeuvre, Dr. Charlotte, who she slept with.
Wow, that would have been, let's be one heck of an interview. Alison, let me ask you, what are some of the biggest mysteries about Hollywood that you didn't realize were true before you started doing this? I'd love to know that, because I've only been to Hollywood one time, and I'd like to go back. And you're there all the time. So what can you share about Hollywood that we don't know?
Well, I would say everyone is pretty much as nuts as you think we are. Pretty much everyone you think is gay, and half the people you think are straight are also gay. And
is it really that bad?
And most of the people you think on drugs are on drugs, yes. I know that sounds terrible, but it is true. I think what happens is a lot of people come to Hollywood and become actors. They're running away from something. And in the old days when people couldn't come out, now you can come out, you can get married, it's fabulous. But back in the day when people really couldn't come out, and they would leave home and they would come to Hollywood and find acceptance here, and they would become stars. And then in the days of Rock Hudson, well, you still can't come out, but so many people had spent their lives pretending to be straight, pretending to be something. And then they'd come to Hollywood and they'd go, well, I'm really good at pretending, and they'd wind up becoming fabulous actors. So I think that's where it attracted a lot of that when people say, well, there's so many gay and lesbian people in Hollywood. Well, yes, they got really good at pretending growing up. So that's absolutely true. People in Hollywood There's a lot of drugs in Hollywood. I've been very lucky. I always say I lack the receptors in my brain that process cocaine, so that saved me millions of dollars right there. Just did nothing.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's just it didn't work. It's like the things that work, that's the cocaine, the part of the brain the cocaine affects. Oops, I'm missing that. Oh well, darn. So hence, I still have my own nose. There you go. And most of my brain cells. So, and almost everyone in Hollywood has had some kind of plastic surgery. I know it's terrible, but this is true. I am one of the few people I know who does have my own nose and my own boobs.
Good. That's good to hear.
I have actually not had any plastic surgery. I am factory parts. I still have my tonsils and my adenoids, but I actually do. I have my own boobs and my own nose. And I know almost no one who can say that.
Wow. Well, listen, we have another phone call, Alison.
Oh, I would think after all of those revelations, my God.
You're on the radio.
Hey, I had a question.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes.
Hey, you growing up out in Hollywood, it's a little bit of a macabre question, but I figured you were there, you were a very young person, but during the Manson murders, I heard that changed quite a bit of the pulse out there. Do you have any memories of that time?
It's funny you should ask, because the tour company that I do my tour, the Nasty Alley Tour, is Dearly Departed Tours. And one of the tours they do is the Helter Skelter, which is the whole history of the Manson murders tour. They do a whole historical thing about that. It was a major piece of Hollywood history because, I mean, yes, famous people were murdered and blah, blah, blah. But prior to the Manson murders, and having grown up here, it's absolutely true, Hollywood was like a weird little village. And with the whole hippie thing, people did not lock their doors. I knew tons of people did not lock their doors. My parents didn't lock the door. Nobody locked. I mean, in the heart of Hollywood, it was like a little resort town. People didn't lock the door. Nobody had a gun. Nobody had a burglar alarm. And in the hippie days, people let total strangers come over and stay at their house. People would have parties, and they'd say, "Oh, I brought these really cool people I met on the way over. Oh, they're really groovy. Great. Oh, yeah, they can come. Oh, yeah, they can come to my house. Oh, in fact, they can stay the weekend." No one thought this was weird. After Manson, boom, everybody's door was locked. Everybody had a deadbolt. People went out and got guns. People had burglar alarms. Everyone freaked out.
That's what I heard, because I know people who grew up out there, and, hitchhiking was usually just like a routine situation, just picking up strangers and making contacts and friends. And I heard that Manson situation changed the whole pulse of literally the country. And it was like the first time that people realized that anything could happen.
And it was the death of the 60s, because people were hitchhiking. In fact, when you read Helter Skelter and even the descriptions by the murderers, they say that one of the things that struck even the killers as odd was when they first came down the hall, and Abigail Folger and Sharon Tate, various people in the bedrooms, they simply looked up and said, "Oh, hi, are you friends of so-and-so?" They thought, "We're strangers. We just broke into these people's house." And they're like, "Oh, hi, do I know you?" Because they were so used to having complete strangers show up at their house.
Yeah,
they didn't bat an eye. They were like, "Oh, why are you here?" It took them several minutes to dawn on them that these people had broken into the house and were there to kill them. And it's
very much.
So bizarre.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
But yes, and in our Manson connection is, my father actually used to get his hair done by Jay Sebring, one of the victims. He used to go to Sebring's salon. And one of the other Manson members who later on in the early 70s escaped from the LA County Jail while awaiting trial, hid out at Gardner Elementary School, where I went to school, and I came to school in the morning, and the place was in lockdown because he was hiding out in a house across the street. And he was then later arrested by an LA County sheriff named Frank Lindley, who is my cousin. Ta-da.
Alison, I want to hold you right there. It's 2 o'clock on the dot here. It's 11 o'clock where you're at. My name is Ray Carr. We're talking to the great Alison Arngrim from Little House on the Prairie and many other things. And this is WCSB in Cleveland. We shall return in just a moment. Please, you stay with us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. WCSB Cleveland. Alison Arngrim. Alison, are you still there?
I'm still here with
grateful.
My tea and my mini pizzas.
I'm great, very grateful. What does a person do for excitement in Hollywood other than see, the sights and the things that, the tourist attractions?
Well, I'm getting old, so running out and hitting the clubs is like, they're too loud. That's too loud. I can't listen to this. Although my husband's in a band. He plays rock and roll. They just don't play it ear-splitting, volume. He's in a band called Catahoula. I should get you a CD. You play rock and roll on here.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
They're great. I always say Fleetwood Mac and Heart went to Mardi Gras together. This is like what they'd sound like when they came back. Sort of New Orleans-y rock and roll, real good old-fashioned 70s rock and roll. I like to go to the movies. I like to go out where there's, like, nature out in the park. I live practically in the Angeles National Forest, which is nice. That's like, when you look at the map, the part where it goes all green, that's where I am, where the fires are. If it's not on fire, it's very nice. I like to go to different restaurants. That's one great thing about living in a big city is you do have food from all over the world. You could eat in a different country every night. And I like sushi, and I like pizza, and I like French food, and I like everything. And so I like exploring different funky little restaurants. There's always some new place that's opened, and so we get to try out. I love that. I like shopping. I don't always like, the chain stores. I like finding funky little boutiques and little shops and little places that, are just someone is designing their own stuff and selling their own things. And you can find that out here. It's nice.
Your comedy act, are you going to be coming to Cleveland?
I need to come to Akron. Like, because my husband has family and friends out there. But yes, I should come to Cleveland. Yeah, I know I've certainly heard tales of Cleveland from Bob. He used to live in Akron, but then go see all the rock bands in Cleveland. So,
where did your husband graduate from?
He went to. Hang on, what's it? Hey, Cuyahoga Falls High.
The home of the Tigers.
Cuyahoga Falls High.
Yeah, the Cuyahoga Heights High School, or Cuyahoga Falls High School.
Where'd you graduate from? Cuyahoga Falls.
The Black Tigers, right?
The Black Tigers?
Yes.
He's in shock. He says yes.
67.
Class of 67, Black Tigers.
Yeah, I remember. I played baseball around there when I was, in my formidable years, so I know all about that. But how about did you go to Kent State?
Oh no, you didn't go to Kent. You went to what? Akron U? Where'd you go?
Okay. Went to Akron U and I partied at Kent.
He said, I went to Akron U, but I partied at Kent.
Partied at Kent, which you probably knew Joe Walsh.
Oh, did you know Joe Walsh?
I drank beer with him in a bar.
Yes, he drank beer with him at the bar, yes.
I figured he might have been.
It's like everybody apparently knew Joe Walsh. Yes, indeed. He drank with Joe Walsh. And being in Akron and being around that age, his mother came to him one day and said, why won't you play your guitar in church? Mrs. Mothersbaugh, her son, plays his piano in church.
Oh, Devo.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Devo was the bane of his existence because Mothersbaugh was playing in church, and his mother was a real show-off about it, and, his mom got jealous.
Mark Mothersbaugh. Didn't he do the theme song for Rugrats?
Yes. Eventually, yes, he became the Rugrats guy.
Amazing.
And like everything else, cranked out those cartoon shows, yeah.
Alison, you're an incredible guest. All I can say is, on behalf of all of our listeners around the world in Cleveland, Ohio, I thank you very, very much for your time and all your stories. And let me ask you for one more, though.
Okay.
Throw one more outrageous story on me that we haven't heard yet. I just love to hear something crazy right now.
Okay, well, give an outrageous story because it involves my husband and it involves Cleveland.
All right.
Because he went to see Big Brother and the Holding Company. It was in Cleveland, yes? Yes, where was it in Cleveland? The music hall.
Okay.
He was like 15, he went to see Janis Joplin and Big Brother and the Holding Company. And he and his friend decided, we're going to go. But, his parents would have had 14 fits. They weren't approving of any of this. This is back in the day when your parents would say, hey, cut your hair and stop listening to things like Janis Joplin. So he told them he was going square dancing at the church.
Square dancing?
Took the station wagon, because that'd get you out of the house. Oh, I'm going square dancing. Oh, yeah, there you go, son. So he takes off, and of course they go to Cleveland to see Janis. And after the concert, they decide, let's sneak backstage. Because they're like 15, 16, so they're like, woohoo, we'll sneak backstage. And they promptly get thrown out. But being very daring, they go back. And this time, they run into one of the Hells Angels that she had hanging around, biker friends, bodyguards. And they think they're in trouble, but he says, what are you guys doing back? I really want to see Janis. he decides this is amusing. So he says, okay, and drags them backstage. Next thing you know, they're in the dressing room. There's Janice. There's the whole band. They're getting autographs. They're in seventh heaven. And they're getting autographs of the whole band, signing their albums and their T-shirts. They're having a blast. And at one point, the guy, one of the guitar players, is using Bob's back like as a board to sign things on. And said, I wrote Love and Kisses. How's that? And Janice says, I can do better than that, and grabs Bob, spins him around, and kisses him on the lips.
Really?
Shortly after that, they flung them out of the dressing room, said, okay, get out of here, because they're going to start doing lots of drugs now. Go home. And, I mean, he just, didn't wash his face for a week. And I said, that's amazing. My God, you kissed Janis Joplin. He said, oh, no, get it right. She kissed me.
Oh, that's a great story. Wow.
So he did. He drove all the way to Cleveland to kiss Janis.
That's one of all of them.
Yeah, that's a great story. Alison, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll have you back on again real soon, because you're one of my favorite guests.
Yes.
Oh, no problem.
Yes, please.
And when you have Aaron on, say hi to my wife.
I will say hi to Aaron Murphy. I will do that. Alison,
right.
Best of luck to you and your husband, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay.
You have a great evening. Bye-bye. Alison Arngrim, ladies and gentlemen.